to the business owner, to team leads, and to individual contributors.
Let me give you some tips on how to be more creative, and do it at these three different levels of an organization. You know, if you're the CEO, how do you think more creatively for you and your organization? But also, I'm going to give you some tips for, let's say, a team leader, and then for an individual contributor. Well, first of all, if you're the CEO, the most important thing is to see creativity as a skill, not a gift. The CEOs who want a creative organization just need to convince themselves that it's a skill that can be trained like any other skill. And so if you're a CEO that wants an organization that has better leadership, what would you do? You would train people. If you want an organization that has more safety mindedness, work safety, what would you do? You would train them. And so if you want a more creative organization, what should you do? You should train them. And so the CEO has to think of creating a competent organization where creativity is valued as an important skill. That's the most important tip I could give. Now, if you're a team leader, here are some tips to make your team a more effective organization. First of all, it's important that you see innovation as a team sport. It takes more than one person. You need to create a cross-functional and diverse team. And what I tell team leads, for example, one way to boost your creative output of a team is to make sure you have equal balance of men and women. Men and women are equally creative, but they have a different cognitive process they go through. And when you bring men and women together, you get a better result than if you had, say, all women or all men. So use gender diversity as a powerful way to become more creative. Number two, to make your team more effective, it's important to work creatively, but do it in small groups. So when I have a team work on a creative problem, instead of working as a team of 8, for example, I will break the group down into 4 teams of 2. And why? Because teams of 2 are much more effective than one group of 8. This is one of the reasons brainstorming doesn't work. When you work in small groups of 2 or 3, but never 4, when you work in small groups of 2, you get better interaction. You're more productive. You are safer. You feel you don't feel you're being judged, and you produce better ideas. And then the third thing that a team leader can do that's very important is put the team under constraints. The team has to feel constraints of time, money, scope, policy, whatever. But create the box, because if they are left without constraints, they will fail. That's the best thing the team leader can do, is create a diverse team, work in small groups, and put constraints on them. Now, for an individual, let's say your listeners aren't a team leader, they work in an organization, and they don't work in an organization, but they want to be more creative. The key there is to recognize that you have fixedness, that you have natural and a fixedness and a bias that makes it hard for you to imagine other things that you can do. See creativity as the combination of 2 things, and use a method that helps you force combinations of things, like my coffee cup and the computer mouse. And just putting random things together will all of a sudden make you more creative. But you have to have the courage to do it. And that's why a method like SIT can do the hard part for you. SIT puts combinations of things together your mind won't do on its own. So that's one thing. Use patterns. And then I think the third thing to be more creative is that you want to get used to making component lists of the problem. So anytime you're innovating, let's say eyeglasses, do you remember the first thing I did? we made a list of the components. And so I encourage people, anytime you start a creative process, take the thing that you're trying to generate ideas for, a product, a process, a service, an organization, a business model, a strategy, anything, and just make a numbered list of the components. That alone can make you see creative potential that you wouldn't have seen before. And then work one component at a time. And I find that you can be marvelously more creative just by taking that little step, using component lists, using constraints, and creating combinations that you normally wouldn't do. It's going to help you see more opportunity instantly.